the meeting?
Go ahead, Brian. You want to start us?
Yes, sir. I heard we did just start the recording. So welcome everybody to the Montgomery County MUD number 67 Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, January the 20th, 2021. Hope everyone is doing well and off to a good start in 2021. As in prior meetings, I'll briefly go through the meeting procedures for our remote meeting and then we'll conduct a roll call. So to begin with, I need to remind everyone the meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we will continue the practice of having a roll call to vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely today so we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I'll perform a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name or your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with our board of directors, Roland Johnson.
Present.
Larry Copeland. Larry, are you in the meeting?
No, Larry's not with us today.
Okay. Alan Fritschke.
Present.
Paul Martin.
Present.
Alton Wicker.
Present.
That completes the roll call for our directors. Moving on to Woodlands Water staff, Jim Stinson.
Present.
Mike Mooney.
Present.
Jeannie Scott.
Here.
Barney Bourgeois. Shelley Lawson Kennedy.
Present.
Any other Woodlands Water staff members in the meeting? Okay, we'll move on to San Jacinto River Authority staff, Ron Kelly.
Present.
Chris Meeks.
Present.
Matt Corley.
Present.
Anyone else from San Jacinto River Authority staff in the meeting?
I do not see anybody else, Brian.
Okay, we'll move on to MUD 67 consultants. Do we have any MUD 67 consultants in the meeting?
John Knox with Knox Cox and Company.
Any other MUD 67 consultants? Okay, do we have a representative from the developer in the meeting? If not, we'll move on to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well.
There is no public.
All right, that will complete the roll call. I'll hand it over to Roland to begin the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We'll dispense with number 2 since we don't have any members from the public for comment. Number 3, consider an act on request for adjustments to or relief from specific charges imposed by the district. Mike or Jeannie, do you have anything?
This is, I don't have anything.
Okay, neither one has anything.
Neither one of us have anything this month.
Okay, move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda?
This is Paul Martin. I'd like a discussion on number 5, page 5.
Okay. I'd like to have number 8 removed. Are there any others? Okay, hearing no others, do we have a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda?
Allen, so moved.
And a second?
This is Alton, second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call. Alton?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland, aye. Consent agenda approved. Moving on then to the items that have been removed. Number 5, review and act on the financial reports and disbursements of December 2020. Paul, you want to speak to that?
Yes, let's see. Okay, page 5, that's the operating income fund for the 3 months ended December 31st. And there is the very last entry under the expenses. It's the transfer from other funds. It's a credit of $47,571. So Maureen, is this the amount of money for the AMI that were paid for? Or, tell me, just walk the board through how you're handling this so I can understand what we're doing.
Yes, this is Maureen, and when we receive an invoice for the AMI project, I'll transfer that same amount from one of the pools to cover the invoice until the capital projects fund is depleted.
Okay, but when we went through the budgetary process, if everyone recalls, we had determined that we were going to put these transfers from the that fund into the other income up above, which is that $923,000 credit for the annual budget. That's where I thought the credits were going to come in.
I can reclass that.
Otherwise, when you get to the end of the year, you're going to have a big distortion. You're not going to show any income, and you're going to have this big credit down below.
Yeah, I'll reclass that, so it'll show.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else there, Paul?
No, that's all I wanted to get.
Anybody else have any discussion on the financials? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
This is Alton, so moved.
And a second?
Allen, second.
Okay, roll call. Alton?
Aye.
Alan?
Hey, aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland, aye. Okay, that's approved. Number 8, consider an act on approving attendance and expenses for district and/or Woodlands Water trustee business. We got the AWBD midwinter conference coming up. That's a virtual conference. I believe we have, I'm attending, and I believe we have another director that's attending, maybe more. I would suggest that we approve a 1-day per diem instead of the 2-day, since we don't have any travel involved. So I will move, or so move. Is there a second? Nobody gonna second it?
This is Alton, I'll second.
Okay. Roll call. Alton?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland, aye. Okay, motion approved. Then moving on then to our regular agenda items. Number 12, review and consider approval of district's fiscal year 2019-2020 draft and audit report. John, you want to take over here?
Yes, sir. This is John Knox with Knox Cox and Company. I'll take you through just some highlights of the report and some changes that Director Martin identified, so that you know what will change from this draft. Starting on page 1, our unqualified opinion, which is what we strive for every year and get every year, but it's what you pay us for. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Turning to page 7. Director Martin noticed that the interest expense down at the bottom, long-term debt, the interest expense for the bonded debt is not the $708,000. That number included San Center River Authority payments, which is not bonded. So we're going to change that number to $485,669 instead of the $708,971. You turn to page 12. Just wanted to mention, I mean, it looks like, we reduced total fund equity by $619,000, but that was pretty much planned. So there's not a lot to say there. Your net position on page 13 at the bottom increased by $753,000. If you turn to page 26, the first bond there, the 2012 refunding bonds, we had a maturity of 2024. we're changing that to 2021. Director Martin identified that. On page 32, I just bring this to everybody's attention. We did add a footnote this year regarding the pandemic. We just wanted to make sure that the world knows that we are aware that there is a pandemic and it could adversely affect us, and we hope desperately that it doesn't, but we did disclose the uncertainty related to it. Page 34, it's changed fairly significantly, the budgeted amounts from what you're seeing. We were showing excess of revenues over expenditures of 25,000, when in fact your budget expected a deficiency of revenues of roughly 474,000, and I think a good portion of that relates to the planned capital outlay for the new meters that didn't all happen this year, but certainly some of it did. And so the new budget shows you a little under budget on revenues and similarly under budget on expenses, but actually a favorable variance from budget of 168,000 once we made those changes. What was included in your original budget that's showing there on page 34 was the planned use of fund equity, which of course is not a revenue or expense. So we took that out once we identified the issue. Page 36, again, Director Martin noticed that the 10,000 gallons usage average of $100.86, excuse me, $100.86 seemed high, and Maureen did some checking, and sure enough, that number is going to change. It's going to come down. I don't have that number in front of me right now, but I think it's in the mid-high 80s is what that number will be.
So Director Martin, Maureen sent an email. I don't know who received it, but I know I did. And our number is $82.77, which is exactly the same as last year.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't bring it with me, but I knew that they did have new numbers for that. On page 38 was on the 2019 column, the very last number, except for the totals, the interest and fiscal charges was overstated by roughly 193,000, which somehow my system, and these reports are pretty intuitive, but it added some issuance costs from the previous year in there twice. So that 629,561 will become 435,612 on the final report. Page 42 is the analysis of changes in long-term debt. Again, that 2012 refunding issue, we showed a maturity of 9/1/24 when in fact it's 9/1/21. So we'll get that in the final report. And finally, I always ask the board to take a close look at page 46. Make sure I spelled everybody's name right. Their term of office looks correct. Fees seem reasonable. Title's correct, kind of thing. And let me know if you have any changes. We'll try and file this report with the TC. It's due in mid-February, like February 13th or somewhere around there. And we'll try and file it in the first week of February. So we have a couple of weeks. And so what I usually like to ask the board is to approve this report pending any additional review from consultants or directors in lieu of maybe some minor modifications, nothing major, of course, but minor modifications to the report to just make it a little more accurate.
This is Director Martin. Before we deal with any motions, I'm just curious on the cover letter that's addressed January 11th to the Board of Directors. It's a 2-page document. In the very first paragraph, John, you talked about, we have communicated such information in our letter to you dated August 12th of 2016.
Oh, that's our original engagement letter. Yes, sir.
Well, so my question is, nothing has changed since you gave us that data in 16?
No, well, the engagement letter was a 5-year engagement letter, which actually expires at the end of this year, I believe. But that define the terms of the engagement, and it was a 5-year term.
Okay.
So that's what it's mentioning is the terms of the engagement.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for John? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to approve with the notations that John's given us?
So moved, Alan.
Okay, do we have a second?
This is Alton, I second.
Okay, roll call. Alton,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and this is Roland, aye. Okay, 13, authorize preparation and submission of district information to Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts as required by section 403.0241 Texas Government Code and chapter 203 Texas Local Government Code for inclusion in the Special Purpose District Public Information Database. Brian, you want to talk to us about this?
This is Brian. This is one of our annual January administrative items the board approves each year since the legislature put this requirement into effect. I think it was a couple of sessions ago. John Knox and his group handle this filing on behalf of the district. It does involve filing the final audit with the comptroller prior to April the 1st, which is the deadline for providing the information. And we do need a motion to authorize Knox Cox to handle that preparation and submission for compliance with those provisions of the government code and local government code.
Okay, this Roland and I move that we approve this. Is there a second?
Second, Alan.
Okay, roll call. Alton,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and this is Roland, aye. Okay, 14, grant exemptions from taxation for 2021 and the adoption of a resolution in connection therewith.
This is Brian. So another annual January administrative item. You'll see a draft of the resolution on pages 31 and 32 of your packet. We have prepared the resolution, including the same exemptions as what was approved for 2020. That is a $20,000 over 65 and disabled exemption, and the 20% residential homestead exemption, which is the maximum allowed by law. We do need a motion to approve the resolution on the 2021 exemptions. If there is any interest on the board in modifying the exemptions from what was granted last year, now would be the time to consider any of those changes.
Do we have a motion to this effect?
I'll move, Director Martin.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Alan.
Okay, roll call. Alton,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and this is Roland, aye. Okay, Brian, the attorney's report.
This is Brian. The only item of a general nature I have to report is that the legislature is now in session. They convened last week in Austin. As expected, Dave Phelan was selected as the new Speaker of the House in place of former Speaker Dennis Bonnen. They are still working through the logistics of how bills will be handled in terms of committee hearings and testimony and things of that nature. With the current COVID environment, there is an expectation that we will have a fewer number of bills that the legislature will consider just for the logistic issues involved. But to be determined how they handle considering bills that are introduced, if there are hearings, and if so, if there is in-person or virtual testimony or some combination of the two. So we'll keep you posted on that, and also we'll bring to your attention any bills that could have a material impact on the business of the district should those bills be introduced during the session. That's all I have for today, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian? If not, we'll move on to General Manager's report. Jim?
Thank you, sir. I wanted to report at the trustee meeting, we received a presentation from Matt Corley, which was a summary of the sixth and final grant accounting and kind of the path forward. I thought that information was very worthwhile and probably should be shared with all the MUD directors and the MUDs. I didn't get it on your agenda for this meeting, but we will have it on your agenda with the report in your packet for next month. We had a lengthy discussion at the trustee meeting regarding the wastewater consolidation concept. Our Finance Budget Audit Committee met with the San Jacinto River Authority a couple of days prior to the trustee meeting, reviewed potential impacts to retail sewer rates that might come from that consolidation. We talked about the scope of work for the feasibility study. We talked about potential public engagement, public education on that topic. The committee asked for some additional information that the San Jacinto River Authority staff is working on. We plan to have another committee meeting before next month and try to come back in February with some more specific information to share regarding that topic. Ron Kelling reported at the trustee meeting that the summary judgment that was granted by the Travis County Court to the San Jacinto River Authority in their lawsuit with Conroe has now appealed that. They've made a kind of a specific request in their appeal that it bypass the appellate court and go straight to the Supreme Court. So we'll see how that works out. Ron, anything to add to that?
No, sir.
We also had a discussion regarding the ad hoc committee that President Hurd requested work with the San Jacinto River Authority staff and our staff regarding the Sunset Commission's directive that the River Authority do more public outreach and public communication with the customer, with its wholesale customer base, or their residents, essentially our MUD residents. How does the River Authority communicate more of what they do and how they do it to our MUD customers? So you'll be seeing some examples of that. We're working on a information sheet to go out to our residents, MUD 67 residents, as well as the other MUDs, on the process the River Authority goes through each year to develop water and sewer wholesale rates for the Woodlands Division, GRP pumpage rates, and surface water rates for the GRP Division. So we're going to push that information out to Woodlands residents and kind of show how they can participate in that process, which essentially would be attending the GRP meetings, attending the trustee meetings, and we'll see how that works out. But nevertheless, the directive is there that the San Jacinto River Authority want to communicate more, and we want to be a part of that effort and try to do it in a way that's informative and productive for our residents. In your packet, there's a monthly summary from our engagement with HARC. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Really, we're having quarterly meetings to talk about real progress, but I've also requested a monthly summary. So that summary is in your packet. At the trustee meeting, we had one resident talk to the trustees about his concern with the AMI poles that have been constructed. One pole in particular, he was concerned about up near Woodlands Parkway in Kirkendall. We've since had another resident call us regarding concerns about the pole installation in the Slash Pine area at water plant number 1. So I reported to the trustees that I would reach out and meet with these individuals and see if we can come back with something that will address their concerns at the February trustee meeting. In your packet, there's a flyer regarding a subsidence webinar. Intera, very well-respected firm on geotechnical and geoscience topics, is going to host that. I would encourage you to attend. They are also the consultant of record to GMA 14. Also in your packet, there's a copy of our content agreement. This is the agreement that historically has been used to formalize the relationship between a developer and the MUD regarding reimbursement for infrastructure installed in the MUD. And we've had some directors want to revisit that document. So Brian and I will be looking at it, talking about it at the trustee meeting, and then maybe bringing it back to the MUDs. But a lot of our directors hadn't seen that or hadn't focused on one of those agreements. So I thought it would be helpful to put it in your packet so it wasn't a surprise next month. And that concludes my report, and I'm open for questions.
Any questions for Jim?
Director Martin, on the progress of AMI for MUD 67, I thought I read where it was 65% complete in somewhere, which seemed awfully high to me, but Mike, maybe you can tell us where we are on MUD 67?
This is Mike. Yeah, Paul, we were 25%. I'm not looking for that either, but I hope we said 25%.
Okay, maybe Shelley could take a look at that. I've forgotten where I saw it.
I recall seeing it too. It's Alan.
This is Alton. I saw 67 too.
It's probably in the trustee summary, and that was a typo. We'll get that corrected.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Jim? Thank you, Jim. Number 17, consider an act on supporting Dr. Neil Gaynor, MUD 6, and Stephanie Zurchik as alternate MUD 7 as voting members of the Texas Water Development Board, San Jacinto River Basin Regional Planning Group.
I'm going to try to kind of make a lengthy story short. There's a lot of documents in your packet that, but the short of it is Dr. Gaynor and others have been applying some pressure to the Texas Water Development Board's San Jacinto Regional Planning Group to get another voting member or more on that group. You may remember we supported Stephanie Zurchik in the original formation of that group, and she did not make it in. The MUDs down in Harris County and Fort Bend County far outnumbered our MUDs. So looking at who's on the group, there's a number of folks that feel like Montgomery County is underrepresented and wants to try to get more a representative other than the River Authority on that group. So Neil Gaynor and Stephanie have been working towards that, and we're recommending that you support them should this opening come up in the future.
Okay, what do you need from us? A resolution of support, or
just a motion and a voting, just showing support. So what I can do, assuming at some point in the near future it comes up, I can prepare a letter to that group saying all of our MUDs support these two individuals.
okay.
Maybe helps them get selected.
Okay, do we have a motion then, a resolution of support for these two candidates?
Director Martin, I recommend we approve both of them.
Okay, do we have a second?
This is Alton. I second.
Okay, roll call. Alton?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Roland? Aye. Okay, number 18, approve resolution authorizing the submittal of the 2021 Water Smart application. And I so move. Do we have a second?
Alan, I second.
Okay, any discussion on this? We'll move to a vote then. Alton?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland, aye. Number 19, discuss the possibility of district consolidation with other Woodlands water MUDs. Brian, do you have anything, or Jim, either one of you?
No, sir. I'm thinking Paul may have requested this, if memory serves me. I can just tell you, we do have two MUDs that are in discussions, MUD 6 and MUD 1. Each have appointed a couple of board members to work on the details and bring reports back. From a timing standpoint, they're looking at certainly not before November of this year, and maybe even May into next year if they decide to go forward.
Okay.
This is Paul Martin. What were the items of commonality that led them to that point?
I would say the fact that their debt, both districts had paid off their debt. Their tax rates are within, I think, a half a point of each other. They're looking at their reserves. They're looking at a number of other financial metrics to see how close they merge together or merge up. I think the tax rate and the fact their bonds have paid off is what makes it something for a discussion going forward.
Do you know if they have, or does anyone know if they have any bonds payable to San Jacinto River Authority in either case?
My recollection is, you mean voted?
Not public bonded indebtedness, but the bonds that many of the MUDs owe to San Jacinto River Authority.
You know, I need to look at that, but I don't have an answer. I'll have to look and report back. Maureen, well, I don't have the answer today, but we'll certainly get that for you.
They still owe, I believe, in the wastewater capacity, if that's what you're referring to.
You say they do have liabilities?
I believe just the wastewater at this point.
Okay, but both of them have.
Yes.
I just
wastewater. Yeah.
My sense in raising this question earlier, 2 months ago, was my idea was to lay out all the metrics for these MUDs, tax rates, bonded indebtedness, debts to San Jacinto River Authority, and, you know, just a number of issues to see whether any of them make any sense at all, other than the ones the two that just have been identified. Because well, that's my thought, and maybe I'll volunteer to take a look at the financial reports, audited financial reports after all these adjustments have been made and they're published. But maybe by laying the data out for public inspection, or by public inspection, I mean director's inspection, they might have a better feel for it once they see the data. If you don't know the data, how can you even make a judgment or even have a discussion?
And Paul, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that sort of detail will be vetted over the next few months. But they just agreed to start that process today.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yep, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll move on. Receive staff update regarding status of TWBD grant application for funding assistance on the Bear Branch improvement concept.
Well, I think I reported to either your MUD or the trustees last month that we were done, and I was corrected. The San Jacinto River Authority has that MOU and the affidavit of no objection on their agenda for, I think, the meeting this week or next week, whenever they meet. So we're still lacking that formal action, but it'll be coming up soon.
Okay, thank you. Number 21, Paul, trustees report.
I think Jim has covered many of the general topics. I just wanted to mention that the towers for the AMI, the 70-foot towers, were the two that I'm aware of. But by the way, there was a large article in the Villager yesterday. I don't know who saw it, but there was a map in there showing where all the AMI receivers are going to be located. Some, of course, are on water towers and other places, but there are, I believe, 6 new poles to be installed, some 120 feet and some 70 feet. So are we just going to do a one-off on these, Jim, or do we need to? I don't know how many have been constructed, and we just wait for the complaints, or do we be, positive and go out and tell them, the people in the areas where these are going to be built, if it hasn't already been done?
Yeah, I know I know at least one is yet to be constructed, and I did visit with Amoresco, Chad Nobles, last night, You know, I asked Chad, I said, you know, I never thought of this. Is this something y'all have dealt with in other communities? You know, you've put in these systems in numerous cities around, I know the state of Texas, and had to install hundreds, if not many hundreds of poles. And he conveyed, you know, this has never come up, this issue. The Woodlands is unique in that regard. This has never come up on any of his pole installation projects where the residents were complaining. So I'm trying to get, I've asked him for information on painting the poles. I've asked him for cost on taking these poles down and putting up one of these fir pine tree or pine tree looking poles that we've seen around the Woodlands. Certainly the one in Terramont Park is yet to be constructed. I think all the others are up. Mike, do you have knowledge on that?
Yes, this is Mike. All the other poles, I believe, are up, except for the one in Terramont Park and then the antenna on the pole at the fire station. The pole's already existing.
This Roland, I haven't seen these poles. How intrusive are they in the neighborhoods?
Well, I think that's probably an answer that could be somewhat subjective. You know, me looking at them, they're all on San Jacinto River Authority property where you've got an elevated storage tank, you've got a ground storage tank, you've got other communication towers that SJRA has. So it didn't appear that obtrusive to me.
How tall are they?
Well, they're either a 75 foot or 125 foot.
Okay.
It depends on the geography of where they're installed.
Okay. Any other comments? Anything else?
And just, well, just on another subject, are we done with that subject?
Yeah.
Okay, so the audit committee is being tasked with several things here, but one of them is this relocation of or consolidation of wastewater treatment facilities. And we continue to meet on that. And I guess I'll just take this opportunity to see if, Jim, we can't arrange some sort of a meeting with the San Jacinto River Authority, or it can be even a phone call. But it seems to me, rather than going through the iterations that we've been going through for the last couple of months, and then we burn up another month, you know, going to the next iteration, let's see if we can't determine how we want to present this data, whether it's good or bad, however it comes out. But let's all determine the way we want to do it, and do it one more time, and then that's it. And either we decide to present the data to the trustees, or we say we're not going to present it because it just didn't meet the test. So I don't know. It's just my frustration level, I guess, at going to meeting after meeting and not getting where we need to be.
Understood. And I think we all feel that this next one hopefully will be the last, and we'll have enough information to say something to the trustees at the February meeting, whether, you know, we've got enough data to make a recommendation, or we got so much data it's hard. Some sort of a conclusion to this effort. Yes, I agree, and I think we all agree.
All right.
Anything else, Paul?
Good point, Paul. This is Alton. It's a good point.
Yeah. No, I think that's it, Mr. President. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Paul? Thank you, Paul. Number 22 is consider an act on development issues. Dan and Richard are not here, so I assume there's nothing to discuss there. Any other matters to be placed on future agendas? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Roland.
See you next month.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Roland.
Roland.